Hello, vinyl community. This is Mike with TCAT's Deep Vinyl Tracks, and today I'm going to be doing the final segment, or part 4, of my progressive artists that you may not have heard of before. This is, like I said, going to be the final segment of that. If I do another one, it will be probably won't be for quite a long time. For now, I'm just highlighting some progressive artists that aren't quite so popular, um, that I have in my collection. And as I get more records throughout the years, I'll probably add to that. I may add another segment in later. So we're going to do that today and look at a few more artists that you may not have thought of as being progressive, or that you may not have heard of before. Now, first of all, before we start off with that, I'd like to give a couple of shout outs, a couple of channels that I'm fairly new to. They both kind of have the same concept, and which is really a neat concept, something a little bit different. And the first of those channels is one called So I Married a Record Collector. This is one where a husband and wife team get together and talk about mostly about his collection, but she also shares some of the vinyl she's picked up also. She talks about some of the records that he has in his collection, and gives her first impressions of them, and then he follows up by giving a little more information about the particular artist or album, and the reason why he has that particular record in his collection. The other one I'd like to talk about is also a husband and wife team, and this channel is called SNL, like Saturday Night Live, but it's SNL for their first initials. The full name is SNL. Sorry, my mind's gone blank. SNL for the Record is the name of the channel. Now, don't worry, I'm going to leave links to both of these channels down below in the details. You can go over and check them out. Hit the subscribe button for these channels. They're really great, very entertaining, and may have possibly given me an idea for something I'd like to try in the near future. So keep a lookout for that. So two great channels for you to sub up. Now, on with part 4 of progressive artists you may not have heard of. I want to mention that I have put together 4 different playlists. Those playlists, everybody's welcome to go look these up and check them out. One of those playlists is the progressive rock playlist, and a lot of the artists that I'm mentioning in these progressive artist videos are on that playlist. So if you'd like to listen to them and check them out a little bit more, check out those playlists, and you will probably find something you like that you've never heard of before, which is the whole purpose behind it all. Alright, so to start off, the first band I want to show is one that a lot of people know about, but really have no idea that they are progressive. The name of that band is Split Enz. Split Enz. This particular album is probably their least progressive. It's more of it's their most popular album, as a matter of fact, and has the least amount of progressive rock tendencies on it. Everything put out before this album is a lot more progressive. This one is a lot more pop-centered, though it's still a great album. And then a lot of the albums they put out after this one went more for the art pop, art rock sound. So they could be called progressive pop beyond this record. You notice this one has the nice hype sticker on the front. There are different iterations of this particular cover by the Split Enz. But one of the cool things about this vinyl is it's laser etched. It has a laser etched graphic. Now, you've seen your share of laser etched records before, right? This one is really different in that the laser etching is inside the actual tracks. And if you shine it under light, you won't see it here, but you get all kinds of cool colors as you move it around that get refracted in that etching. But you can see it on both sides there. It's really cool. It really looks nice when you're spinning it under a light in your sleeve. So split ends. This is a band that a lot of people wouldn't even think of when you were talking about progressive bands, but they started out that way, and their music moved, after this particular album, moved back to more of an art pop style. So you may want to check them out. Great band.
I got you, that's all I want. I won't forget, that's a whole lot. I don't go out, not now that you're in. Sometimes we shout, but that's no problem.
Like a fly in the ointment, love makes my flesh creep. Love gives me hot and bothered. It's just a reward I never reap. And I'm lying on the lawn bed, hot sun overhead, waiting for the breath of inspiration to carry me away instead. Without a doubt, without a doubt, I'm working for precious little.
Another band I'd like to talk about is one that comes from West Germany. This band doesn't get a lot of notoriety here in the North American side of the world. It's heard of a little bit more in the European countries, mainly because it is a German band. But the name of the band is Triumvirate. That's how you spell it right there, Triumvirate. Like I said, from West Germany. This band has been criticized a bit for being too close to sounding like Emerson, Lake and Palmer. As a matter of fact, the feeling behind the music was inspired by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. That's that type of sound. But the main member, the founding member that stayed with the band throughout all of the years that it was together, is Jürgen Fritz. And when you listen to his keyboard playing, you'll see why people compare why they compare their sound to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, because he sounds more like Keith Emerson's style of playing than any other artist I've heard. And some people may criticize that fact to being too much of a copy of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. In some cases, it sounds quite a bit like them. But being compared to Emerson, Lake and Palmer should be like the greatest compliment ever. And that also means that to be compared to Keith Emerson is like one of the highest compliments, and you would have to be really good to really be compared to him in the first place. So anyway, this is one of their earliest albums, which this is one of them, were very progressive, and they stayed progressive through most of their discography. Their last couple of albums moved more towards middle of the road sound. They got rid of all their progressive inclinations altogether by the last two albums, and they really don't sound that good. But if you stay within the realm of their progressive music, it's very impressive. This is one of their great albums. Each side is like a mini suite or a mini concept. There are two separate concepts on it, and you can see that by kind of like the way the track listing is on the back. So if you're looking for something that has that Emerson, Lake and Palmer sound, you really like Emerson, Lake and Palmer's early music, then you may want to check these guys out. And notice this is on the green Capitol label. Meaning it is imported. It also shows it as being harvest on the jacket itself. Their album that came after that turned out to be probably their most popular album, and that one is called Spartacus, and that one did remain in the progressive realm. I don't have a copy of that one, unfortunately, but it is another great album, as is this one, Old Loves Die Hard. Another great album by Triumvirate. A lot of their tracks can get quite long, and a lot of them are divided up into suites. This one's on the more traditional Capitol label. Their first fully concept album that keeps the same concept all the way through is Triumvirate Presents Pompeii. Now, for this particular album, you notice it says new at the top. Jürgen Fritz is still the keyboardist. One of the lead singer at this time had gone off, and he also happened to be the bass player, kind of like Greg Lake was. Went off on his own, and unfortunately died not too long after his solo album was released. But Jürgen Fritz continued on with the band as much as he could. They continued on, even though there was getting to be some pressure from the record label wanting them to become more radio friendly. They still stayed very progressive with this particular album. And there's the back of it. Another great album, again on the typical orange Capitol label. And probably the last in probably the last in their discography that I would highly recommend. After that, they got a little bit too commercial, and the quality of their music went down. And kind of like the same history as Emerson, Lake and Palmer did with Love Beach, their music got even more commercial and just isn't worth picking up unless you're a completist. But this one is still a great album. Okay, next in line I have a band called True Myth. True Myth is a band from London, Ontario, which is only about an hour away from here. Um, and one of the unique things about this particular album is that it was the very first album to be released, or the first vinyl album to be released digitally. Um, I think in the United States there were some other albums released, including Stevie Wonder's The Secret Life of Plants, that was released digitally, recorded digitally. Um, this one was recorded digitally, the first one to be recorded digitally in Canada. True Myth is a band that even up in Canada isn't very well known, but they are a very good progressive band. And unfortunately one that tends to get ignored a bit. For what reason, I don't know. Their music is really good, and this is really quite a great sounding album too. There's the custom label that it comes on, and it is released on Warner Brother Records, so it had a major label backing it up. But for some reason, he never really caught on anywhere. They weren't formed, or this first album wasn't released till around 1977, I believe. Well, actually 1979. The band was formed in 77. This album wasn't released until 79. So the progressive rock movement was kind of dying out. After this, True Myth released a second album around 1981, and I haven't heard that. I don't know how progressive it is. But after that, the band folded. They didn't stay together. Between those two albums, there was quite a few lineup changes, so they were just kind of on shaky ground all along.
But time and time again doesn't rhyme. I am speeding through this world with a map without signs. Never knowing where to go. No one willing to let me know what everything and I have in
Next, I want to show a band. Most people that know anything about progressive music will know of this band. I'm not sure how well they are known outside of prog circles, but they are a hard progressive band, and that would be UK. Now, I know many of you are going to know who they are. This is actually a progressive supergroup, which originally consisted of John Wetton, who was with King Crimson and Uriah Heep, Alan Holdsworth, who most jazz guitarists know of his unique style, lovers of jazz that is, and you hear that unique style on this. That's what makes gives UK one of its unique sounds. Eddie Jobson from Roxy Music is also part of the band. He does the keyboards and the violin. People familiar with UK know how wonderful his violin sounds, and that's the other part that gives them their unique sound. And then, of course, Bill Bruford was originally with the band for this album. Of course, he's from Yes, from King Crimson. Everybody knows how great of a drummer he is. So here's UK's debut album, and probably the favorite out of people that know the band. That's the label, and it comes on Polydor. Now, their second album, by the time the second album came around, Alan Holdsworth had left the band and wasn't replaced. Bill Bruford went on to work some more with King Crimson. Their second album was called Danger Money. This is one of those Hypnosis covers. And We still have Eddie Jobson doing his electric violin and the keyboards. We still have John Wetton on bass and vocals. But now we also have Terry Bozzio, who had worked with Frank Zappa on the drums. Now, again, Terry Bozzio is another respected drummer, another great drummer. This album sounds somewhat different from the original. A lot of people argue that it's not quite as progressive. I disagree. I still think it's wonderfully progressive. It's made up of 6 tracks. One of the tracks is over 12 minutes long. But there's some great. I love this album almost as much as the first one. Honestly, I can't see owning the first one without also owning this one. If you're a true UK fan, just great stuff. Love the album. I think it's just wonderful, just like the first one. Of course, there's a more traditional Polydor label for that one. And unfortunately, the band didn't stay together long. Of course, John Wetton went on to form Asia, and everybody else went on to do their own thing. But they did release a 3rd album, which is Night After Night, their live album. And this retains the same lineup, I believe, as what the 2nd album did. Yes, John Wetton, Eddie Jobson, and Terry Bozzio. And on this album, they combine both the 1st and 2nd albums and play tracks from all of those. Another great album. There's enough change over from the original that you can almost think you're listening to a brand new album, brand new songs. There's what the label looks like. So after that, I think there was only one more live album released, and that was quite a while after, from an older show. Unfortunately, the band didn't stay together, which was really sad because just an amazing sound. I'll never forget the first time I got the album. I had no idea who was in it, who was in the band. I just ordered it off Columbia House because of the great review that I read from it and a little write-up that they had about it. I thought, well, I'll give it a try, and I got it on 8-track. And I got home from work and was really tired, laid down on the bed and put that in when I first got it, and I was transported. I mean, I literally could see the music as it was playing. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but it's one I never forgot, and I still love the band to this day. Couple of CDs I want to show from an artist, another Canadian artist, in fact. However, I knew about this artist long before I knew he was Canadian. I knew about him down in the States when I lived down there, and I knew a few people that were big fans of his, but I don't hear enough about him. I don't understand why he's not more famous than what he is here in the vinyl community. Well known in progressive rock circles. And he plays his own brand of progressive metal that's not like any other progressive metal out there. In fact, some people may consider it a little more extreme than just your typical progressive metal, but then there are other times when he veers off into a completely different direction and plays electronic music or minimal music, or you never know what he's going to do. but most of his music is very heavy progressive metal. And the name of the artist is Devin Townsend. Um, he originally came from a band called Strapping Young Lad, which was extreme metal band. And he calmed things down a little bit, but not a lot. He doesn't yell and scream as much as he did for Strapping Young Lad, which is a good thing. But he still carries that anger and that sound in some of his songs and some of his music with his new projects. And he's done solo albums under Devin Townsend. He's done albums under the Devin Townsend Project and albums under the Devin Townsend Band. This is one of them. It's called Accelerated Evolution. This is an excellent album, as most of his are. And Cinchestra, or Synkestra, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, is another one. I showed these CDs on another video not too long ago, but can't push this guy enough. His music is just excellent, and from one CD to another can change so much. If you don't like minimal music, you may want to stay away from the two albums that he put out that were kind of had that minimalist vibe to them. But other than that, he's pretty heavy.
It's alright to cry. It's alright to lean on everyone. It's alright to lie in the bed you've made for everyone. If you ever need someone, if you ever heed someone, if you ever need me, babe, I will be there. It's alright to die. It's alright to bleed.
Another band that I never hear much about is a band called Ulver. And again, I showed this one not too long ago. This particular album is called, I can never remember the name of it, Shadows of the Sun. The band Ulver has a lot of different albums out there, and every single one of them is different, but every single one of them is top notch. It doesn't sound like a band performing music just for the sake of performing different genres. Every time they have a different style, they sound like they're pros at it. So, in my opinion, every one of their albums is high quality, especially everything after their first, I think, 4 albums. But even those are good and should be checked out. Now, their first 3 albums were very black metal sounding, and that's called their black metal trilogy. but there is a different level to the music than just loudness, even though their third album is what a lot of people consider the heaviest and loudest album ever made. Um, Later on, they moved more towards soundtracks. They started doing electronic music. They started doing more instrumental music, and they've moved through several different genres. This one here is a very dark album, but the music itself is not really that loud, even though it's dark. I don't know how else to explain their music. You'll pick up one of their albums, like Perdition City is one of their highly recommended albums. Mostly instrumental, but just beautiful. I mean, you'd never believe it's the same people doing the same music. They've done their own almost classical sounding works. They've worked with drones, they've worked with post metal, they've worked with everything. I mean, you're bound to find something by them. I would suggest going online and looking them up, checking out some of their different music, and see what it is you like. Once you enter the door to their music, you're going to find out that you want to find out more and more about it, just because almost every time they are so good at what they do. Peter dies, lonesome old man. So last but not least, I want to show one more album from an artist that came from a band, very famous band. Back several years ago, the band Yes, after their album after their album Relayer, they decided to go out. The members of the band at that time decided to go out and release their own solo albums, and I've shown an example from every one of them in all previous 3 parts of this series. John Anderson did a solo album, Elias of Sun Hilo. Patrick O'Hearn did his own solo album. Steve, can't believe I've lost his name. You know who I mean. Did his own solo album called Beginnings. I can remember the name of the album, but I can't think of it's just weird. I can't believe I can't think of it. Anyway, Alan White also did his. Unfortunately, we lost Alan White a couple of years ago. Well, actually, more recently. Chris Squire was the one that we lost a couple of years ago. I showed his solo album, and now Alan White solo album, Ramshackled. Pretty good album. Not as good as Chris Squires, but probably my second favorite out of the Yes solo albums. Here's what the inner sleeve looks like. And then there's a lyric sheet that comes with it, this colorful lyric sheet. This Alan White album has quite a few guests on it, including a lot of guests from the Yes lineup. And it's a pretty good album. It's not really consistent in that it goes through a lot of different genres, but you find some really good treasures on it anyway. And if you're a Yes fan, you definitely want to look for this one. So.
Bright city street lights burn in a black night. Like the moonlight on the lake, darkened apartments.
Anyway, that does it for this particular episode of Progressive Artists you probably haven't heard of. And I would recommend you go check them out. Listen to their music. If you're not sure what they sound like or anything, then, you know, go stream some of their music even here on YouTube or elsewhere, and you can find out whether you really like the music or not. But just like with any great progressive band, you have to sometimes give it a few listens before it really grows on you, or before it starts to click in. So anyway, I want to thank you for watching this. Thank you for hanging in there through all 4 episodes of this series. And I hope you go out there and find some great progressive artists that you know and love. Progressive rock is my favorite genre, though I try to always mix it up with a lot of different genres. So, and also check out my playlists, and go and subscribe to the 2 channels I mentioned, SNL for the Record and So I Married a Record Collector. 2 great channels, husband and wife teams, really entertaining, great information. I'll leave the links down in the details. Check it out, and thank you again for watching. We'll talk to you later.